So we get home this evening on our first day of kids missing school, and my wife seems to have found a small leak in our sink. I placed a towel down here, and so sorry that the video is a little grainy since it's my first time. But in order to fix this, the very first thing we want to do is shut off both the hot and the cold water. So we check and make sure, even though this is a drain issue, we definitely don't want somebody being able to turn on the water. What happens is there is plumber's putty around this seal right here, and that gets dried out or cracked over time, or even gets a few heavy loads and flexes the sink off and on, and then that gets cracked up. It gets some leak, and then it corrodes the O-ring, and then the basket needs to be replaced. We can get that off there, clean it up, and try to put it back together, but 9 times out of 10 you're still going to get a small leak. So over time I have learned to keep a few of these around. This is a stainless steel basket strainer. Inside here is so here's the strainer out of the container. There is an O-ring, a new strainer top similar to the old. Not much difference there. The bottom sometimes is a little different, the reason why I use the new one over the old one. It has a connection down here at the bottom to the pipe, and like I said, an O-ring, that plastic or rubber, but do not throw away the cardboard. That is a necessary component to help the nut slip when it gets tight. So we need to get this out and the new one in. We looked underneath and we were able to unspin these with just our hands. Then we went up to the corroded big nut on the bottom of the basket, which required a little bit of help from my partner here, Bane. We stuck a pair of needle nose pliers down in the basket, and Bane was told to hold on to it really tight. Then I grabbed a pair of channel locks or pump pliers. I went out and grabbed a few different sizes, and I found one that fit the ring, and it was this third size up, which is pretty large for most people's typical size. They make an actual wrench for that nut. I've never had it successfully work. Then I went underneath and uncomfortably laid on my back and tried to grab, and I told Bane to hold on to it very tightly and not to let it spin. But I had enough leverage with that to spin Bane, so I had to acquire a little larger version in Braxton to hold on to that for us. And now we have it spun loose, where Bane's going to still hold the top while I take the rest loose by hand. And there's a lot of junk that comes loose, and a lot of, seems like, nastiness, which brings us to our second rule of plumbing. The first one is that crap goes downhill, and after this I'm not going to want to bite my fingernails. So the very first thing we did, though, once again remember, is we shut off our water supply, even though we're working on the drain. So now we have a few parts loose. There's what's left of the O-ring and the paper gasket, thanks to that. I'm also going to need to clean all this up, and we'll get back with you when we're ready to reassemble. Real quickly, I want to show you what Bane acquired as gunk here, but this is actually the plumber's putty that we will use. This is what happens when it gets old and dried up and broke up. And here's a little more pliable version. We will go back to art class and when we first played with Play-Doh, and we'll make a snake. Lay the snake around in here and put the new basket in. So here we're making our small snake from art class. We want just enough to wrap clear around. We don't need a huge amount of excess. I tie it together and smash it together like a pretzel here a little bit. It's a very pliable situation. We're going to take the ring apart, and the O-ring and the paper ring go on the bottom, and this ring goes through the top, and we will smash it down all the way around till you see the excess putty squeeze out around the outside. So that's a good sign to see that come out. Now I want to go underside and apply the ring, the rubber, and the cardboard, but do not forget that cardboard is important. That is considered a slip washer and helps this slide, because if we just took this off, that would stick, and you need the nut to be able to spin on there when you're trying to tighten this up. So we're going to slide, and once again I'll probably have Bane eventually hold down while I spin that nut up on there. Okay, so we tightened up the nut on the bottom here earlier, keeping the cardboard in place and the rubber O-ring ahead of it. We used the metal nut that was here with the brand new basket starting into the old plastic here. There's a rubber O-ring in here. All of these fittings here I loosened up as we went, but now I've made them all tight again, all by hand. Didn't over snug them, didn't over tighten them. And let's see what happens, Bane, when you add water. Alright, Bane. Perfect. I think we should be able to make that work. Excuse me. Now we have one last little bit of a job to do. At the top here, there's some of the plumber's putty that was smooshed out here, as the case may be. And all I have to do is take my finger and peel that away a little bit. Careful not to let it all down the drain. It's not probably good to get stuck in the drain. And there we are. And then, alright, this home maintenance video was brought to you by Mr. Stegbauer and his helper Bane, the video man. Just reminding you that somebody else did it before you, so there's no reason you can't do it as well.